It's Kelly. It is April 8th, day 8 of vlogging every day in April. The girls just got done with school. It's Wednesday, and I'm going to do half of my March wrap up today because I'm running out of space. Say hi.
Hi.
Did you have a good school day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Go do Legos.
Okay.
She's playing Legos, so she should stay out of my hair. And I'm still I just started good into Son of Neptune. I'm on page 65. I'm in Hazel's chapter. So I feel disconnected from Percy.
And this is a computer holder.
I'm not getting it, and I think Rick Riordan meant that you're supposed to be disconnected because Percy has lost his memories, and he's at Camp Jupiter. He's at the Roman camp. And did they call Apollo the same? Was Apollo the Greek and Roman name? I'm not sure, but they're saying Apollo a lot when Frank is wishing for Apollo to be his father because he's good with the bow. Yeah. And Nico, I totally forgot about Nico, and at first I thought Hazel was Bianca. I had to go back and research what Nico's sister's name was because I read Percy Jackson and the Olympians years ago, and I only know bits and pieces. I only remember bits and pieces, so I need to do a reread with my kids. But yeah, I'm liking this one way better than the first one. I don't miss Jason or Piper, but Leo, I kind of missed Leo because he was my favorite. He was the funny one. And the Fawns, they're hated. I mean, who can hate Grover? And Dawn, the Fawn, who's trying to pick up all the little pieces that Hazel lets pop up. So, yeah, I'm into that. I read 7 books in the month of March, and I'm going to be talking about 3 of them today, because, like I said, I'm running out of space. I may talk about a 4th one. I don't know. So, the first one I read, I finished on March 4th. I started reading it on the last day of February, I think. And that is Lost in Shangri-La by Mitchell Zukoff. The reason I'm looking down is I got my notes. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5. This was one of the picks for my A to Z reading challenge for the month of February, and I didn't finish it in February, obviously. But it is nonfiction, and it is about World War II set in Papua New Guinea. And it's about this plane getting lost in Shangri-La, the valley of Shangri-La in New Guinea, and them being stuck for, I think, 7-8 weeks. Things I liked the most were the interactions between the survivors and the natives. The survivors, the 2 male soldiers, and then the female soldier, she just, it was very dated with how their descriptions of the headhunters and everything. They called them headhunters, and they weren't really. Not to foreigners, only to enemy tribes, and it was just weird. There was a time where the natives were just rubbing all up against the survivors, or the 2 men, and the 2 men soldiers, they were just tired of it, and they just got butt freaking naked to show the natives that they had penises and that they were men. And then the natives just go busting out laughing, and it's just because their skin color and the clothes. And the only thing the natives wore were like penis gourds and everything. So another thing was, did the army or the military need to make that many supply drops carrying useless things to the survivors, to only 3 survivors, and then they kept sending stuff like for the 60 plus people that was on the plane. They never sent the woman survivor underwear, but then one day they sent her a whole box of pads long enough for her to be there months, and she was only there for like weeks. And did you really need that many pads? It was just a waste, and then they all left it there. It's a complete waste. It bugged the hell out of me, and it was just The soldiers were calling the natives savages, and it was just it being in the 1940s. You would think that there was some semblance of consideration that these were natives to this land, and you were there just calling them savages and invading their property, their land, their territory. But I don't know. And then the story went off completely whenever there was a new person introduced into the story. Like this one guy who was on the rescue team. It told his entire backstory of his father and him living in the Philippines, growing up in the Philippines, and how the Japanese invaded the Philippines and did the Bataan, I forget, the death march. And it talks about how when they were rescued and when they were back in the States, how the female, I forget her name, how the female soldier, the female survivor, how she was getting all these interviews and getting all of this attention, and then she just went off the grid because she didn't want the attention. And then while she was getting the attention, people were like, oh yeah, she just got lost for attention. So would I recommend it? Yes, but it's not really factual about the war. It mentions the war because they're in it, but by the time that they are rescued, the war is won and done. And so I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars because it had pictures scattered throughout the book, and I absolutely enjoyed it. One of my reading challenges for this year was to read a Stephen King book every month, and that just didn't happen in January. It didn't happen in February. So in March, I finally read Carrie, which I've seen the movie. I have not seen the remake. I think I said I've seen the remake, but I haven't. It's got Chloe Grace Moretz, and I really, honestly, don't like her as an actress. I think she's not that great. But if y'all have seen that remake with her and it's great, let me know. I knew it was religious, but holy freaking crap, was the book way religious. It was more religious than the movie, I seen. And the thoughts in parentheses, the constant, it was just confusing. And this is an instance where the movie is better than the book. I find that some of Stephen King's movies are better than his books, and then some books are way better than the movies. Okay, take for example, I have read 11/22/63, one of my absolute favorite Stephen King books of all time. But the show, I absolutely loved it too. So that's not a really good example. Okay, Misery. Misery was a good book. It scared the living hell out of me. That one scene where they changed it in the movie, this is an instance where the book is better than the movie. Now, Carrie, the original movie with Sissy Spacek, way better than the book. Okay, the movie is just great. It's got John Travolta, and he's Danny Zuko turned evil. And yeah, the ending, it's totally different ending than in the book. I was hoping to see the little girl that's at the end of the book, but instead, if you haven't seen the movie Carrie, then mute me. But seeing the Carrie is in hell and her arm comes, oh my god, that just the ending I didn't understand because it was talking in southern twang like a redneck, an illiterate redneck talking about her daughter having these powers, and just what was that about? I couldn't understand it. I'm southern, I have a twang, I don't talk like that though, and I can't read it. I can't understand my people. But anyways, I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. But the movie is really great. It's better than the book. I may have to do a video on Stephen King books better than the movies, and then Stephen King movies better than the books. Another instance of where the book and the adaptation just sucks. Under the Dome. Way too fucking long, and I didn't get in. I watched the first episode and then stopped. The third book that I read was a compendium. It was a big book with 3 volumes in it, and it was Saga, book 1. It had volumes 1, 2, and 3, and I absolutely love this. I will be getting volume 4 soon. I had to get the book 1 with volumes 1, 2, and 3 because my library did not have volume 1 separately, but they have volume 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 9. Yeah, I give it a 5 out of 5. It's one of my favorites. I loved Robot Prince 4. Lion Cat. Lion Cat is my favorite character. And Isabel. But Lion Cat. It's just, I could just picture him. Or her. Is it her? Him? Gwendolyn and Will were talking, and the Will was obviously lying. And Lion Cat just goes, lying? With the question mark. And Gwendolyn was like, how have you not killed him? I could just picture him going like, lying? Lion Cat is my favorite. The picture with the runt picture of Lion Cat being the runt absolutely broke my heart. I am obsessed with runts of the litter. They are just, if I ever adopt a animal, cat or puppy, I always go for the runt. Me and my husband think that Luna was the runt, and that's why we found her, because she was all alone. And she is so freaking tiny for her age. She's not like a full-grown cat size. She's tiny. And she eats like nobody's business. But, yeah, anyways, so there's a shit ton of sex. I was laughing and connected from the very first page. With the very first page, it was showing her giving birth. And the first sentence was, am I shitting? It feels like I'm shitting. I have 3 children. Natural births. Yeah, totally relate. Maybe too TMI, but yeah. Yeah. All her aches and pains and how she was feeling like a human pacifier. Yeah. Felt like that, her connection with Marco, and it reminded me of how me and Casey were when we first started dating, and when we had Samantha. And yeah, I love Saga. I'm just ready to read volume 4 ASAP, and I'm getting the Isabel pop and the Lion Cat pop for sure. I don't know if I'm going to get Prince Robot 4. I was seeing his sex scene, that was just weird. And the orgy, oh god, on Sextillion? Kind of interesting trying to follow all of them, but that's why am I getting red? Okay. But yeah, I give Saga book 1 volumes 1, 2, and 3 5 stars. What the hell? I'm going to talk about one more, and then I'll talk about the next 3 tomorrow. The last one I want to talk about today is Funny Girl by Nick Hornby. I've been wanting to read this for years. When I started getting into my Goodreads account, this was the first book I put on my to be read shelf, And then I took it off a couple years later saying, I am not interested. And I found it a day later at the Dollar Tree. So I bought it and I put it back on my TBR shelf, and I took another 3-4 years to read it. So I read it and I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it. I didn't like it. It was okay. There was times while I was reading it, I didn't want to stop. But when I did stop to go to sleep, I found myself not wanting to pick it up the next morning. Like, what the hell? It's about a woman named Barbara. She, at the very beginning, we meet her entering this beauty pageant for her town. And she wins. And then 5 minutes later, she gives up the crown to somebody else because she doesn't want the attention. Which is weird, because then she moves to London and takes on a new name. I forget. Sophie. She takes the name Sophie and starts working at this perfume counter. Not a perfume counter. But she takes the place of a perfume counter, and she starts getting hit on by these married men who walk by with their ring on and then walk right by with their ring off. And she goes on a date with one of this married guy, and there's a double date with a guy who, when his friend who thought they were going to be bringing their wives, when the guy who brought Sophie meant mistresses. And so the other guy brings his wife, and the wife has met the other man's wife, and it's just, Sophie tries to bring up all of this stuff, like she's the actual wife and her wife is the actual mistress, and the children are just ploys or decoys and stuff like that. It was just, that was my favorite part. And then she wants to become a Lucille Ball. Her favorite show is I Love Lucy. She's obsessed, and she whines about it constantly because she doesn't have a TV in London, so she can't catch up on the episodes. And then she gets on the show and she starts having an affair with her counterpart, Jim. And yeah, it's just about her being an actress, and the series, I keep saying seasons because in the US, seasons of TV shows are called seasons, and then they're called series in Europe and around the rest of the world. And so it goes through the series, like series 3 and series 4, until the final series. And then at the very end, she ends up, they also trash Lucille Ball in this book, and it was just, we don't get much into the show, which I wanted, and it's not really funny. I'm not British, and it's got British humor, so I didn't really find it funny. It wasn't really a funny girl. Put dishes up, the utensils, and start the dishes, please.
Okay.
But this is set in 1960s London. At first I thought it was 1950s because I Love Lucy was started in the 1950s, I think. And it talked about, it seemed like it was closer to the time of the Blitz because it was talked about a lot. But, yeah, I didn't really like it. And I wanted to love it. But, funny and fast moving, perceptive and sharp. Wasn't funny at all. So, this is a misinterpretation. Funny girl was like more bland girl. And that is it. Or that's the first 4 books that I read in March. I'll talk about the other 3 tomorrow. I have to go do housework and get ready for Lego Masters tonight. It's a Star Wars episode, and I'm so freaking excited. I may come on before or after and tell y'all my thoughts. So I'll see y'all later. And I gotta go fix the split lip. Bye. Oh my god, that episode of Lego Masters was so freaking good. Oh my god. They made the best. The last 3 teams are my favorite teams. Mark and Boone, they do the best, like, technical stuff. Sam and Jessica, they make the prettiest builds with a whole bunch of color. And then Tyler and Amy, they do the best characters, and I don't know which one I want to win next week for the finale. Excuse you. But yeah, tonight was the second to last episode. It was the semifinals, and nobody went home. So, but it was scary that Tyler and Amy were picked third. So if somebody did go home tonight, it would have been Tyler and Amy. And they usually build great characters, and they built the at, and it wasn't very colorful. And they do big characters with a whole lot of color. I can't speak. I'm so excited. But yeah, I took a picture, and I'll put it right here of Sammy and Ari holding R2-D2 and BB-8 in front of the TV, and it was just, so. I need to finish working. I need to read some more, and I'll see you tomorrow for part 2 of my March wrap-up. Good night.